I'm going to be much nicer to Jeff Merrick this week. It was overkill last week. It was a couple of admonishments. I maybe went too far. And he's been kind enough to carve out time as he is in Washington for the Capitals Hurricanes series. So thank you for that, sir.
My pleasure. I like the admonishments. I trust me. I like that. I like there's the old dojo saying the protruding nail gets hammered down. I always appreciated that about you, Matty. I always appreciated you hammering down the nail.
It's kind of our brand.
You're our Mr. Miyagi. So
exactly. Yes.
Hey,
protruding nail. Bam, bam, bam.
You get it at worst once a week, Blake. It's daily.
So what are you
coming back, Blake?
What are you doing in Washington, Jeff? Explain.
So we're doing the sheet here for actually today's the last day, and then I'm off to Florida for games 3 and 4 of Toronto and the Florida Panthers. But here for the series. So we've got people sort of scattered all over from the Nation Network, and they said, "Where do you want to go?" And I said, "I want to go do Washington, Carolina." I know of the 4, it might not be the sexiest series, and I know that the Carolina Hurricanes are an acquired taste for hockey fans, but I really do. I might be in the minority here outside of Canes fans themselves. I really do like watching the Carolina Hurricanes, but from one very specific location, and that is Popcorn Row. I love watching Carolina from press row because you could really see what Rod Brind'Amour is doing here, and it's a fascinating team. Like you guys know, it's man to man all over the ice. So it's so unique to see a lot of open ice out there and no one able to do anything with it because Carolina skates in your hip pocket.
And Jeff, 94-34 on the shot attempts in game 1, we noted. I'm not sure I've ever seen that in a regular season game, let alone a Stanley Cup playoff game.
So a few years ago, I'll tell you a funny story about that because the Carolina Hurricanes have always been the NHL's analytics darlings. And I remember talking to a Hurricanes player, this would have been 3-4 years ago, and we were talking about the reputation. And he said, all you have to do is watch our first period. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, they like to have a lot of shots and shot attempts. So we spend the first period, and this is the money quote, we spend the first period warming up our Corsi to keep everyone happy in the organization. But the interesting thing about this team is, as much as they are, the Corsi Kings and all that, and shot attempts and tilting the rink and all these types of things, it's a combination new school, old school, because A, nobody dumps it in, and B, nobody retrieves better than the Carolina Hurricanes. They are the
dumps in the corner.
They are the masters of surrendering the puck tactically. Carolina puts it in positions where hockey's, one of those wonderful sports where you actually surrender the object of play to improve your position on the field, or in this case on the ice. And Carolina are the masters of it.
Nobody punts like the Carolina Hurricanes. Good punts into the coffin
Good
corner.
Tickets are
nice
still
soft
available.
Dumps in the
Good
corner.
Tickets
like
are still available.
Yeah.
All right. Well, while we're talking coaching strategy, let's talk about who's going to be deploying their strategy with the Vancouver Canucks. And there's still a lot of question marks everywhere. News yesterday that Rick Tocchet maybe is still looking at the West Coast, albeit not in Vancouver, in Anaheim and Seattle. Yeah. So. What are you hearing out there in the wide world of coaches?
Seattle very much. Let's not forget here, too. He was the preferred candidate to be the first choice for the Seattle Kraken, right? That was the expectation. For whatever reason, it fell apart. Tocchet does have a relationship with new general manager Jason Botterill that goes back to the days of the Pittsburgh Penguins. So there's a family tie in Seattle as well with his son. It would not surprise anybody, I don't think, if he ended up the head coach of the Seattle Kraken, despite what we heard from Jim Rutherford, and that his preference was to go east. And I think we all went, okay, so where is he more loved, in Pittsburgh or in Philadelphia? And is there an outside shot at Boston as well? I think all of it is in play for Rick Tocchet. I'm very much in the camp that I would not be surprised if Seattle is and does end up being the destination for Tocchet here. He almost went there once.
Why has it been so quiet around Boston, Philly, even Chicago?
It's not as if they're not interviewing. I mean, I'm always curious. To me, one of the most interesting days for assistant coaches are the off days in the playoffs where they're busy and, I can't call you back for between 7 and 9 tonight. I'm otherwise detained. Everyone's doing a good job right now, keeping everything on the DL. But this is the duck's legs underwater, right? Everyone's making their calls. Everyone's having their Zooms. And, I think a lot of us, we're waiting for dominoes to fall. That began with Sullivan. Looks like Quenneville's going into Anaheim. And you know what it's like when you guys have seen this before, when managers start to sense that the music is winding down and they start to count chairs, then all of a sudden you start to see coaches get picked off and hirings made quickly. It's kind of like in that second round when one team takes a goalie and everyone freaks out and goes like, okay, the first goalie's gone. Now we got to take our goal. Now it's time for the goalies. You see it at the draft all the time.
And if Anaheim gets Quenneville done today, then that could very much spur the other teams that are seeking head coaches. Let's talk a little.
The only thing about that too is the only thing about that is there are still some coaches and some assistant coaches that would be. Not so much head coaches, but of course assistant coaches that would be candidates that obviously can't be hired until their playoff runs are done.
Yeah. Let's talk a little about the sort of lesser known candidates.
Sure.
What can you tell us about Mike Vellucci and Mitch Love of Quesnel, British Columbia?
Who is still in action?
And we'll see him tonight with Spencer Carberry on the bench with the Washington Capitals. I mean, Vellucci, to be honest with you, I'm kind of surprised that it hasn't already happened for Mike Vellucci on the NHL level consistently. I think it's probably only a matter of time. But then I've been saying that for a long time. Mitch Love is an interesting name. If we can park a little bit of time to talk about Mitch Love, he's a fascinating guy. I was having a conversation with someone from another team last night who said Mitch Love is the next big young coach in the NHL. He's 40 years old. He's been on benches in the American League. And as you mentioned, he's on the bench with Spencer Carberry in Washington right now. He said he's the next big thing in the NHL, and Mitch Love one day will win Stanley Cups. And if you talk to any of the players that he's coached, they all love him. Like he's very much a player's coach that way. The way he coaches is if you just remember Mitch Love from the WHL, that's not how he coached. The way he played is not the way he coaches. He was, as you guys know, a really tough player in the Western Hockey League. He comes from a strong hockey background. His dad was a scout with Saskatoon, Tri-City, and I think Everett as well in the Western Hockey League. So he's kind of grown up around it his entire life. Did wonderful work in Saskatoon with the Blades, in through the American Hockey League with Stockton, in Calgary, was a finalist for the Calgary Flames job. I believe Spencer Carberry was a big supporter in bringing him in Washington. Like if it doesn't happen this season for Mitch Love, it will happen eventually. I'm glad you guys are bringing him up on your show, because the secret is not so much a secret anymore, that people are starting to understand, like, this guy is going to get hired in the NHL eventually, sooner than later. And I'm told that there's a number of teams interested.
The demographics of both of those guys are very different. Like it's a 58-year-old, Vellucci, who, as you said, it hasn't happened. So if you're a team like the Canucks, I mean, you got a guy that you can theoretically grow with if it goes well in Mitch Love. And, I don't know how many more kicks at the can Mike Vellucci's going to get here at his age.
Yeah, and that might be the knock against someone like, I've always wondered about, Claude Julien with Vancouver as well. If you're the team that's like dying for a strong structure coach, I mean, Claude Julien is your guy. Mind you, he doesn't work for cheap. But yeah, you're right about that one. If you're looking for a coach that you're going to grow with, I mean, different teams, as you well know, Blake, are in different phases of their winning cycles. Yeah. And for some, it's, we need someone here for the next 3 years. And then for other coaches, we need someone here for the next 5 or 6, whatever the coach's shelf lives are these days around the NHL. Jeff, can I bring up one other name really quickly?
Sure.
Because his name's really not out there.
Let me just remind while it's fresh. We tried hiring the head coach of the team that beat us in the Stanley Cup final once before, Jeff. It didn't work very well. So Claude has that working against him.
Lasted 1 year.
I understand. Let me throw one name out there that isn't really out there and people aren't discussing a lot, but he is highly thought of in NHL circles, and that is Jay McKee. I believe there are teams that are interested. He coaches with OHL Brantford with the Bulldogs. Was a wonderful player. I always have a soft spot in my heart for shot blocking defensemen, because every time someone winds up and he goes down, that could be it for the career. And he had a wonderful career with Buffalo and St. Louis. Jay McKee is someone that is, let's just say, of interest for a couple of teams out there in this coaching offseason.
Let me throw another name on the of interest pile. Todd Nelson.
Yes.
And one interim shot in the NHL with an Edmonton Oilers franchise that was a whole lot less functional when he took it over in 2014, 2015. He was the first coach that sort of got them somewhat turning the corner. Like, the record doesn't look great at 17-25-9, but you have to remember just how horrible the Oilers had been and just how dysfunctional the organization was. The other thing about Todd Nelson, he's won 3 Calder Cups as a head coach, including the last 2 with the Hershey Bears, 1 in Grand Rapids. He was an assistant to the legendary John Anderson and won a Calder Cup as well. Yep. And then he won 2 Colonial Cups as he was coming up his way with Muskegon. No, but it's just everywhere he goes.
He's the Scotty Bowman of minor league hockey.
There's trophies. He's around a lot of trophies.
Yeah, I would, and it's interesting with the Hershey Bears, for every season, I always kind of feel bad. I know they could do Zoom calls and these types of things, but I always kind of feel bad for Todd Nelson because he's so highly thought of and has been a candidate in a number of places. The problem with Todd Nelson is just what you're talking about, Maddie. His teams go so far that, when the coaching hirings are happening,
never available.
He's still coaching.
That's unbelievable.
It's true.
Of course.
Like, honestly, the NHL and these coaches have to get together on this and say, okay, we can carve out a half an hour on a Zoom these days for an interview, and maybe on a game day.
And they do. But the interesting thing about this year, and we'll see what happens, their Bears are in tough right now. Like, they may be out on Friday. Like, they may be out tomorrow, and Todd is free and clear to talk to anybody at any time. Like I had a conversation with someone the other day about it, and I brought up Vancouver because I know I was coming on today, and they said, yeah, we would expect that there would be some conversation there between Vancouver and Todd Nelson. Seattle also came up. I made my notes here. I was told Seattle, Boston, Pittsburgh, Vancouver, Chicago would be interested in having a conversation with Todd Nelson.
We're not here yet, but when is it weird that the Canucks don't have a coach? When do you think is like your eyebrow gets cocked a little bit? Are we first week of June, or are we still beyond that?
Well, Rutherford's already said he doesn't want to stretch this out. Right? So you take Jim Rutherford at his word, then you want to have somebody in place by the time the draft rolls around. Right? Like, you still want to get the preferred candidate. You don't want to wait till, we use the analogy of the music slowing down and everybody grabbing their last chairs on the dance floor. I would say, like, within the next couple of weeks. Yeah. I would imagine the picture becomes more clear where everybody is going to go and where everyone is going to land. But certainly by the time the draft rolls around, like, you want your new coach at the table.
I think so. You followed junior hockey closely. Give me a stud at number 15 in this draft for the Canucks.
If you get lucky, if Vancouver gets lucky, I don't know that Kashan Aitchison is going to be there. Like, at the beginning of the season, you look at Kashan Aitchison, and for your listeners and viewers, Kashan Aitchison is a big, tough defenseman for the Barrie Colts. Really good skater, really strong. Like, he's a hard-hitting, like, when he's out there type defender.
I've heard him described as a throwback player, Jeff.
There is an element, and he's not shy to drop the gloves. Like, there is a very strong. As everybody, it's funny too. Hey, Matty, like, everybody now is looking at. Everybody can skate, everybody can pass, everybody can play, everyone can shoot. What else can you give me? Yeah. He's got that extra, what else can you give me? which is very much more in vogue than it's ever been. I mean, so you do wonder about players falling. I don't know that Kashan Aitchison does, but if he does, there's your stud. Roger McQueen of the Brandon Wheat Kings has only played a couple of games. I just awful what has happened to his season with the injury. But I think that you've seen enough of a body of work from him that he probably shouldn't fall to 15. But if somehow he does, there's another stud for you.
He's giving Cody Hodgson a little bit, right? Canucks have gone down that road with back troubled centers.
with back issues. I know. Like, how many times did Vancouver Canucks fans be false started on a back issue? Don't remind us. Yeah. We all watch those sagas play out. I like Cole Reshny with Victoria around 15. And the other player that I really like in that area, and maybe it's a little bit early, but Cameron Reid is a defenseman with the Kitchener Rangers who will have he'll play in your top four for 15 years. And we talked about, Mitch Love and growing up around it. His dad is the Power Edge Pro training system, the PEP system made famous by Connor McDavid. His dad is a PEP trained coach. So he's always been around it, and his dad had a big hand in training him as well. Great family, solid defenseman, good in all three zones. He's probably going to go between 15 and 25. And if I were the Vancouver Canucks and Cameron Reid was still available at 15, I'd have a really good hard look there.
Yeah, Aitchison, 6'2", 196. He's up to 71 points in 80 games, including playoffs this year, and 116 penalty minutes. So he fills out the box score,
Everything he does, Matty, is, I always like to say, Aitchison does everything for keeps. Every shot, every stride, every punch. That's Kashan Aitchison. I don't think he's there at 15. There's always one that falls. There's always one that we look at and say, wham, like last year was Yves Boyum. And what a score that was for the Minnesota Wild, with hindsight being 2020. There's always someone.
Give me the guy who walks into the dressing room and needs to win at ping pong. Give me that guy. The competitive guy who's not even going to give a quarter in ping pong.
And
okay.
you know who that was in junior hockey, and he used to have legendary ping pong matches with Rocky Thompson when he coached the Windsor Spitfires. Was Mikhail Sergachev. The Mikhail Sergachev Rocky Thompson table tennis matchups they're actually legendary in OHL circles. That's what I lob up to you today. The story of Rocky Thompson like ping pong with Mikhail Sergachev. Bet you didn't think you'd do something like that today when you woke up. There's your Easter. Yeah, there you go. There's your Easter.
I just want to clarify. I think ability to play hockey first. Ping pong champion
for sure.
Second.
We're not drafting Forrest Gump here. Okay.
Just I wanted to make that abundantly clear.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay, you have your criteria, Mr. Price. I have mine.
Need a short answer here, and then we'll get on to the Easter egg. Are we starting to get the sense this is Canada's year, Jeff? Like if I gave you the Canadian 3 versus the U.S. 5 right now, are you taking that bet that one of the Canadian teams lifts that chalice in June?
Winnipeg's tough against, I want to say the Dallas Stars, but really I want to say Mikko Rantanen.
Right.
I've seen Toronto drive it into the ditch too many times.
From here. Yeah.
Okay. Like we've seen them steer this off the road. I'm really happy for Maple Leafs fans, and I'll resist the obvious, let's measure the bridges to see where the floats will fit underneath jokes. But maybe Edmonton, right? Like after that scare early in the Kings series, everything changed when Quentin Byfield didn't chip that puck out. And they are playing with a determination now, and they've found a second line by moving Corey Perry to the first line that looks like it's going to do a lot of damage in these playoffs. And again, like I'm waiting for the clock to strike midnight on Pickard, but every time I say that, the Oilers win.
I know,
and he looks good, and we've seen goalies get hot for a stretch before, so. Am I getting the soap and warm water feeling? I don't know that I've grabbed the bar of soap yet, but I've turned on the tap. How about that?
I hear what you're saying. Like, if Edmonton wins tonight and you got two Canadian teams up to buzz, like, all of a sudden the hype train is going to start here.
I've got a TFC game that I got to call on June 28th. I'm thinking that's parade day. That's parade day
for the parade.
Yeah, I've got to find a new way to get to BMO because it's got to.
That's right. Yeah. Right, and of course the Scouts won't be able to participate because we're going to run the Stanley Cup final into the draft, but it's going to be a hell of a parade. Okay. Gents, the Easter egg this week.
Okay.
Famously, the last Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup, the Montreal Canadiens in 1993. 32 years on. Which of the Canadian 7 has won the most postseason series in that time?
Ooh. I remember this stat from about 5-7 years ago. I remember trotting it out. I don't know where we're at now.
7 Canadian franchises have totaled for 72 postseason series victories in the last 32 years since the Cup resided in Canada. Who has won the most?
2 Cup visits for the Oilers since then. I'll go Oilers.
Jeff?
I'll take the Ottawa Senators.
I'm very disappointed in both of you, so here does come the admonishment, but particularly in Blake. The winner is the Vancouver Canucks at 14.
They were the leader last
They went to 2 cups too, Blake.
I know, but they've had a bit of a drought.
They, of course, had more success around the Oilers. Oh, we talked drought. Look at the Oilers drought. But here's, gents, this is really close. Canucks have won 14 postseason series. Edmonton and Montreal have won 13 in that time, so Edmonton could tie Vancouver.
Right, so it wasn't a crazy guess by me.
That's not crazy.
Toronto and Ottawa have each won 11. Yeah. And, of course, if the Leafs were to win 3 more, they would tie the Canucks at 14 as well. But that would not be the biggest story if they won 3 more. All right. Can't believe you guys went 0 for 2. They had a...
we're
each of them had a 1 in 7 chance, Mike, and
I was one off.
Especially the hockey historian savant guy.
Hang on. If you're gonna ask, if you're gonna expect me to answer trivia questions correctly, I'm gonna need more money. Okay. Like that's just the way it goes.
All right,
duly noted. $11, $11 a week.
Yeah, exactly. Give you $1 for every Canucks postseason series win since '93.
You know the old saying: "There's no I in team, but there's 2 I's in invoice." So you just bump her up a little bit there for your boy here.
Have a good time in Washington
D.C. and Florida. Yes, we'll catch up next week.
Thanks, boys. Be good.